Okay, so we did terrorism and mass shootings and their portrayals in the media, and this is by Anna Patterson, Anna Trago, and Ryan Wilson. So the background on our project, although generally infrequent, violent crime in America has caused detrimental effects on the public. Mass violent crime has very clear physical impacts to the victims, but it also has very significant mental impacts to not only the victims and their families, but to the general public as well. This puts a lot of importance on the media and the way information about mass violence is portrayed, which can influence attitudes towards certain races, religions, or mental illnesses.
Okay, so why are we interested? So media outlets typically have a specific agenda when broadcasting, especially when a mass crime has occurred. The media can spin an event into a certain story to either appeal or antagonize a certain group in the world through the use of narratives. In turn, the public concern and social policies are affected by these news stories. Mass crime receive the same story or coverage depending on the network and characteristic various networks deem newsworthy. Media plays a vital role in our access to information and shows what we have not experienced and encourages validity in the events and perceptions that they show.
Based on the various sources and topics discussed, our final hypotheses for the study were news coverage of acts of terrorism and mass shootings will be covered for a longer period of time if the perpetrator is a minority. Muslim perpetrators are more likely to receive more media attention than perpetrators who identify with other religions. Perpetrators with confirmed and discussed mental illnesses are more likely to be discussed for longer periods of time in the media, and female perpetrators do not receive the same amount of media coverage that male perpetrators receive. The study was conducted with the content analysis of news articles from several different online news platforms. A codebook was used during the content analysis to look at different demographics such as race, age, and sex. 3 demographic variables are suspect age, race, and sex. Independent variables are religion and mental illness. And to test our variables, we conducted multiple tests, including t-tests, ANOVA, and Pearson correlation. Our final sample in this study included 25 instances of mass crimes, 13 shootings, 5 bombings, and 7 stabbings, with an average of 26 victims killed or injured in 108 days covered in the media. We recoded the race variable into white and all other races, leaving 40% white and 60% all other races. We recoded religion into Christianity, Islam, and all others, leaving 28% Christian, 20% Islam, and 52% other or unknown. And we recoded mental illness to combine know and unknown to test against documented mental illness, leaving 56% with mental illness and 56% without or unknown to have mental illness. We ran a Pearson correlation test to show the relationship between how many victims killed or injured and how long the media ran coverage of the crime. Although it wasn't statistically significant, we found a weak, moderate relationship between number of victims and length of coverage, and it was 0.056 significant level. To determine how long the media ran coverage of the crime based on 2 independent variables, how many victims killed or injured and religion, we ran a multiple regression test. Only one variable was found to be statistically significant, and it was how many victims killed or injured had the greatest effect on how long the media ran coverage of the crime. As the number of victims killed or injured increased, the length of coverage in the media increased.
So for our first hypothesis, that was the news coverage of acts of terrorism and mass shootings will be covered for a longer period of time if the perpetrator is a minority. However, it did not seem that this proved any significance in our results, and the number of victims might be more of a factor in a longer period of time in media coverage, as it was closer to significant in our results. For the second hypothesis, that Muslim perpetrators are more likely to receive more media attention than perpetrators who identify with other religions, it was found that Muslim offenders had a longer period of media coverage than other religions. However, it wasn't statistically significant, and it was also found through our results that religion was not significant when run with the other variable of how many victims were killed and or injured. For the third hypothesis, that media coverage was included in the sample did not mention whether the perpetrator had a confirmed diagnosed mental illness, often enough to find significant results. And when it was related to topics concerning mental illness, it was often put in with trials, like if insanity pleas were going to be referred in court, and if the suspect was competent or not to face this trial. For our last hypothesis, it stated that female perpetrators did not receive the same amount of media coverage that male perpetrators received. And we only had one female perpetrator in our sample size, so we could not actually run test results to test this statement. For our limitations, there were several factors that may have influenced the lack of significant results during our data analysis. The primary one is our sample size, and a larger sample with more media coverage outlets could have provided us with more significant results, and especially the hypothesis about female offenders and mental illness. Another limitation we encountered was the tone of the article on topics including mental illness, religion, and race. Future researchers may find it beneficial to make note of whether the perpetrators are referenced in a positive, negative, or neutral light concerning these topics. The final limitation that could have affected our study would be that it was all secondary data analysis and depended on the quality of the research. And here are our references.